Hey friends, welcome. We cannot use full capacity of any scripting language if we don't know how to use it to work remotely on computers. Throughout this section, we will be seeing different aspects of PowerShell remoting. PowerShell remoting is basically running commands on remote computer. In this case, when we run commands on remote computer, all the resources are consumed on remote computer only, on which commands are run actually, right? But a few resources are consumed on our local client as well, because it has to maintain the sessions on remote computer for running the commands. But still, maximum resources are consumed on remote machine only. We can use PowerShell remoting to fetch information from remote computer. Like suppose we want to take inventory from remote computer, or maybe suppose we want to see how many local users are there on remote computer, or maybe we want to fetch some other information from remote computer. For that, we can use PowerShell remoting. Also, we use PowerShell remoting to manage some configuration on remote computer. Like suppose we want that IIS should be installed on remote computer without any interruption physically on that machine. We can use PowerShell remoting for that. Or maybe suppose we want to maintain some other configuration on remote computer. PowerShell remoting is the best candidate for such kind of job. Now next is, we have different approaches for PowerShell remoting. First approach is, we have some commands which have their own computer name parameter. We can supply the name of computer using this parameter. And example of such commands are like get-service. This command supports computer name parameter. Using the computer name parameter, we can define like from which computer we want to fetch the service information. But only constraint with this approach is that all commands doesn't support this parameter. So our second approach, commands that specifically used for remoting technology. These commands are like invoke command, enter-ps session, CIM commands, and all the commands with noun ps session. Throughout this section, we are going to focus on these type of commands, right? We can use these PowerShell remoting commands for running commands which doesn't support computer name parameter. Let me name this demo as finding commands that support parameter for remote work. Alright. So if we try to find the commands, we can use like get -command. Alright. And we can use parameter to find the parameter computer name. Like we want to find all the commands that support parameter computer name. So if we find this, star and close. Okay. So if we run this command, we can see like we are getting so many commands like this. Alright. So if we try to count like how many these commands are, we can easily count it by using measure -object. So what we can do is measure -object. Alright. So we can easily see there are basically 31 commands which support computer name parameter. Means we can use these commands for remote work. But what about other commands which don't have this parameter? Like if we want to see all those commands which doesn't support computer name parameter, or if you want to see like how many total commands are there in my console, I can easily find it by just removing this parameter, because now we don't want to filter the commands with parameter. We want to find all the commands which are there in this console. If we run this command, we can easily see like we have 12,525 commands in total. But the commands which support computer name parameter are 31 commands only. So what about other commands? Like if suppose we have a command like host name, right? That is used to find the computer name of a machine, right? So this command doesn't support any computer name parameter, right? Computer name parameter. We don't have any parameter with computer name. Alright. If we have to run this command on remote computer, what we can do? For that requirement, we have PowerShell remoting commands that we will see throughout our coming videos. Next one is PowerShell remoting components. It is very compulsory to understand the different components of PowerShell remoting in case we want to work with it thoroughly, or in case we want to troubleshoot in case we are stuck anywhere while using PowerShell remoting. In this slide, we can easily see all the components of PS remoting. Like first one is web services for management. So when a client initiates a connection, it basically establishes the connection on WS main protocol. So when a client try to establish a remote connection, it try on WS main protocol basically, right? And then once the session has been initiated, then it checks whether this particular port is open or not on remote machine, whether the client can communicate to remote machine on this port or not. This is the first level of check, right? So we need to ensure this port is open. Then next level of check is whether this particular service, Windows Remote Management Service, this is a service that is responsible for implementing the complete PS remoting mechanism on a machine, right? So it's a Windows service basically. So we need to ensure if this service is running on remote machine. If this service is not running, our remote session will not be established. So we need to ensure this service is running. Then it moves further, like if this service is running, then we need to provide a valid set of authentication token, right? So authentication basically happens on two levels. Like first is credential, that is basically client ID and password, and second one is on machine level. Fine. Like when we talk about client credential, they are basically simply ID and password. And when we talk about machine credential, that is basically if our client machine trusts remote machine or not. In case of domain, all the machine trust the other machines which are in the same domain. But in the case of work group, we have to maintain this trust manually. Like we have to add remote machines in the trust list of local client. We will see all these things in our coming lessons. So basically this is the third level of check that we need to ensure if we are passing the correct information. Once our ports are open, our service is running, and we are providing the correct credentials, and remote machine is added in our trusted list of local client, then our request moves further. Like here, right? This service basically then forward the request to endpoint, right? So what kind of request we have, accordingly it choose the default endpoint, and then these endpoints passes the information further to the listener. So basically these are the listeners. Like there may be different kind of listeners, like it may be a PowerShell or it may be some other application as well. But because this section is about PowerShell, so we will be discussing about PowerShell only. So in summary, we can say that we have four kind of checks that should be passed to maintain a successful remote connection between a client and a remote machine. So what those checks are? First of all, we need this port to be opened, right? This is the first check. Then second check is we need this service to be running. That is the second check. And third check is we should provide a valid credential. That is third check. And fourth check is our remoting components should be enabled on remote machine. So these are the four components. If any of these component is missing or failed or not working, our remote session will not be established. Please keep this in mind and make it a thumb rule to check these four components first in case you are facing any remoting issue. So till now we have understood what exactly PowerShell remoting is, what are its uses, and what are its components that are required to make a successful PS remoting session. Now in this video, we will discuss about like how we can enable PowerShell remoting on a remote machine. So before we enable PS remoting on any remote machine, we need to understand two cases. Like one is domain machines and second one are workgroup machine. So in case of domain machines, we simply need to run command enable PS remoting. Once we run this command, then it does some sequence of activities on that machine. Like it start the service, or it start the WinRM service, or in case it is already started, then it restart the service. Also, it set the startup level of this service to automatic. Then next is, in case our firewall is enabled on remote machine, then it creates or sets the necessary rules that passes the traffic of PS remoting. Also, it sets the required endpoints that actually serve our remoting request. By default, PS remoting, or you can say WinRM service, is already enabled on server OS. But in case of client machines, we may need to enable them manually. So we may need to enable PS remoting manually on client machines. In case of workgroup machines, we have to run the command that we have already seen in our previous slide. Apart from that, we have to do two more activities. Like first one is, we have to add the remote machine in the trusted host list of client machine, right? So basically it's a kind of remoting configuration. And then next one is, we have to create a registry entry with this keyword, like local account token filter policy. We will see in just a few minutes like how we can perform these steps using PowerShell only. Please make a note, this step is required even if our machines are on domain, but we are using local user to make a remote connection. Like suppose we have two machines which are on domain, but we are not using domain user, but instead we are using local to make a remote connection. In that case as well, we need to add remote machine in our trusted host list of local client. So let me name this demo as preparing setup for PS remoting in workgroup environment. For this, first of all, we have to do some work on remote machine. Remote machine, if we want to check its name is like remote computer. All right. So we have to do some steps on remote machine, and what those steps are, first of all is we have to enable PS remoting by using command enable -PS remoting. All right. We can use this command for enabling PS remoting, but what it does is it asks us for confirmation for many things. If we want that we should not be asked for any confirmation, what we can do is we can use a parameter like force. All right. So what it will do now is it will enable PS remoting on this machine without asking for any confirmation to us. All right. PS remoting is enabled. Now, if we want to cross check whether it is actually enabled or not, what we can do is we can cross check the status of service, that is Windows Remote Management. Get -service WinRM. If we run this command, we can get the status of this service, and we can see it is running. All right. So in this way, we can confirm that Windows remoting has been enabled on this machine. And also, if we want to check like whether we have any endpoint enabled or not on this machine, we can easily see by using command like get -PS session configuration. All right. If we press tab, then we can get this command in auto completion way. And if we run this command and let we see only names of endpoints. All right. So we can easily see like we have 4 endpoints on this machine. In this way, we can confirm that PowerShell remoting is enabled on this machine. Now, what we have to do is we have to create a registry entry, and this entry we have to create only in case of workgroup machines, and also in case of domain machines, we can ensure if this registry entry is present or not. If it is not present due to any reason, we have to create it. So first of all, let me ensure if this entry is present or not on this machine. For this, what we can do is we can write a command like get -item property. Path is, so I have written this command by pausing the video to make the video short. And if I run this command, I can easily see like I don't have any entry with this name. All right. So I'm getting error like this entry doesn't exist at this path, right? So what we have to do is we need to ensure this entry is present in this machine. For that, we need to create this entry using command new -item property. So I have written this command like we are creating a new item property in registry at this path, and the name of entry is local account token filter policy, and value is 1, means we are enabling this entry, and the property type of this registry entry is dword. Alright, and we are creating this. In case you cannot remember this, don't worry, I will be supplying this in resources and in description as well, so you can copy it from there in case you need to practice this. If I run this command, I can see like this entry has been created, and if I check it again, I can see this entry is present this time. So now my machine is ready, means my remote machine is ready to accept the remote connections. So now what we have to do is we have to do all our work on our client machine. So let me move to our client machine. On client side, what we have to do, as I told you, we have to check if remote machine is available in our trusted host list or not. So if we need to check it, how we can check is like get-item, and we need to check this entry in WSMan configuration. Basically WSMan acts like a drive, so we can access all the resources in it like a drive. And if I check like localhost / client and / trusted hosts, okay, so if I run this command, we can easily see like there is no value at this point of time, right? So what we need to do is we need to add the IP or name of remote machine in this list. For that, what we have to do is we have to use command like set-item. Like we are trying to create one entry in this path, and the value of entry is this one, remote machine. We can create a variable like $remote machine. So it's a tip kind of thing as well. So whenever you have to use some value that you cannot remember very well, and you have to use that value very frequently in your code or in your script, so what you can do is you can store that value in a variable that you can easily remember. All right, so now what we have to do is we need to check the IP of remote machine, IP config. All right, so what we can do is we can copy this IP, and we can store this IP in this variable. So now the benefit of this activity is we don't need to remember this IP again and again. What we can do is in place of this IP, we can use this variable, right? Because it is easy to remember. So if I run this command, okay, so like cannot convert value system object to system string required by the parameter. Okay, so what we can do is we can store it like this, and if we run this command, now we can see like this value has been stored in this variable. Now if we run this command, and now again if we check like what exactly the entries are there in trusted host, we can see like this entry has been made, or this machine has been added in trusted host list of our client machine. All right, so now our client machine is ready to make connections remotely on our remote machine. And one thing I missed to tell you, like why we are using this concatenate, like in case suppose our local machine having some machines in its trusted host list already, right? Suppose it has 5 machines that it trusts. Now we want to add 6th machine maybe, right? If we use this parameter, what it will do is it will append the 6th machine in this list, but it will not override. All right, so we use this concatenate button to append the entry in this trusted host list, but not to override. If we don't use this parameter, still we will be able to run this command, but in that case our new entry will override the all existing. So now we have one machine in our trusted list. Now once we have enabled PS remoting on remote machine, next thing is to establish a session, and these sessions may be one-to-one PowerShell remoting. In case of one-to-one PowerShell remoting, session is established with a single remote machine at a time, and the commands that are used for one-to-one PS remoting are enter PS session and exit PS session. These are some key points that we need to know before working with one-to-one PS remoting sessions. Like we cannot execute any command that initiate a remote connection. Like we have a command that is nslookup, right? So we cannot use this command in case we are working in one-to-one PS remoting. So nslookup command is basically that create its own connection. Also, we cannot run any command that starts a graphical application. For example, Notepad. We cannot use Notepad to get launched through a PowerShell remoting session. Also, we cannot run scripts on remote machines if execution policy of remote machine doesn't allow to run scripts on that machine. And the most important, session work not visible to other users who are working on remote machine. Even if a user is working physically on that machine by taking the console of that machine, still he cannot know like what exact commands we are passing on remote machine. Let me name this demo as 1-to-1 PS remoting. So now what we need is, like as we already discussed, the command for using 1-to-1 PS remoting is enter -PS session, and then we have to use the computer name, remote computer name, and that is we need to use this IP. And as I told you already, we cannot do like if we have added the IP in our trusted host list and we are using the name of remote machine. Whatever entry we have made in our trusted host list, same entry we have to use here along with computer name parameter, right? So we need to use IP, and now we need to do is credential. So one way is like you have to put the credential again and again. So the best way is what I can do is suppose in case I have to do remoting on remote machine very frequently. One way is like I have to enter this credential again and again, right? Or second way is what I can do is I can store the credential in a variable, and then I can use credentials from that variable again and again. Let me create a variable that is like cred, all right? And what I am doing here is whatever the output of this command, get -credential. So whatever the output of this command, I want to store that in this variable. All right. So if I run this, it is asking me for ID and password. Let me supply it like IP of my remote machine. In case we are working in work group, we have to supply domain name as the IP or name of our remote machine. All right. So my ID is admin and password is this. And if I run this command, my credentials have been stored in this variable. All right. So if I have to check the contents of this variable, I can check it like this one. So as you can see, username is this one and password is like it has been stored as a secure string. All right. So I have stored my IP of remote machine in my this variable. I have stored credentials of my remote machine in this variable like cred. Okay. So now if I try to remote the remote machine and if I run this command, let me see what happened. So as you can see, I have successfully remoted into the remote machine. All right. So in case I want to cross check, what I can do is host name, and if I do that is I'm getting host name of my remote machine, that is remote computer. All right. And if I have to exit this session, now whatever commands I will run over here, whatever like get -service. So what it is doing is it is returning the services of that remote machine, but not of my local machine. And in case I have to exit this session, what I can do is exit -PS session, right? Enter. Now I'm again back to my local machine, and if I check the name of my local machine, it is local client. All right. Next one is one-to-many PowerShell remoting. It is very helpful when we have to work with multiple remote machines at the same time. Commands used for one-to-many PS remoting is invoke -command. Now some points that we should remember about one-to-many PS remoting is that we need to provide exactly the same computer name as it appears in Active Directory or in local trusted host list, right? We cannot use like if we have added the IP of remote machine in our trusted host list, but we are using the name of that remote machine. That is not possible. So in case we have added IP of remote machine, then we need to use IP while making a connection to remote machine. In case we have added name, then we need to use name while making the connection with remote machine. So please be very careful about this. When we fetch output from remote machine, or when output is generated out of commands that we are running on remote machines, then an extra column is added with name PS computer name. We can avoid this extra column by using hide computer name parameter. And at a time, our client machine can communicate to 32 computers only. This is very important to know this in case we are working with more than 32 machines at the same time. Suppose we are working with 100 machines at the same time. We have run a command remotely on 100 machines. But in this case, in actual, the command will be running on 32 machines at any point of time. Once the machines on which this command is already running, once those are complete, then next machines will be added to this task list and then they will be completed like this. But at any point of time, only 32 machines can communicate to our client machine by default. But we can control this mechanism using parameter throttle limit. So this is very important, like we should not be dependent on default values, because as I told in the beginning only, like though resources of remote machines are consumed, but at least some resources are consumed on our client machine as well, just to maintain the sessions with remote machines. So in case suppose we are dependent on default setting, that is like 32 computers, so our client machine may get hanged, or it may behave abnormally in case it doesn't have enough resources to maintain the sessions. So please keep this thing in mind. Let me name this demo as one to many PS remoting. All right. So as we saw in our last demo, like we use enter-ps session command to work with a single remote machine. So what we have to do in case we have to work with multiple remote machines? So we have a separate command for that. That is invoke hyphen command. All right. So we have to use this command, and we have to define a computer name. And let me tell you, we can supply array of computer names. Means we can supply a list of computer names against this computer name parameter in case of invoke hyphen command. Right. So let me supply only one computer name, that is remote machine, and credential is again same one like what we stored in our variable. And now in this case, what we have to do is whatever commands we need to run on our remote machine, we have to enclose them into curly brackets. Please keep this thing in mind, like script block, and whatever we want to run, we have to enclose it into curly brackets. Now if I run this command, what it will do is it is returning the name of my remote computer. So whatever command I need to run on my remote machine, I need to put that into this curly bracket. That is the section of script block parameter. All right. You might be surprising like how we can know like if this computer name is really storing or whether it can really accept a list of computer names. Let me just show you a little basic things. Like if we see like help of this command, if I want to see help of this command, what I can do is help invoke hyphen command, and suppose I want to see a parameter computer name. Fine. So if I run this command, here you can see, so what you are saying is like computer name parameter is accepting the values of strings. All right. Here you can see a string. Now next to string is these two square brackets. So what's the meaning of this square bracket is it represents array, means it is accepting the strings only, and list of strings it can accept, means list of computers it can accept. And if you will see further, like whether this parameter is required or not, it is false, means this is optional parameter. In case we don't define computer name over here, what it will do is it will try to remote into local machine only, that is local host. All right. Position of this parameter is 0. It means like suppose if we define this parameter at any position using its parameter name, it will work. Computer name is this one, and let me remove it from here because we are passing it. Okay. So let me run this again, and as you can see it is working, right? So even if we remove the name of this parameter and we are passing just value of this remote computer only, like IP of this remote computer only, if we run this command, still it will work, right? So what is the meaning of position 0? Like if the position of this parameter is 0, means whatever value we will define with this command without any parameter, like this is a open value, we don't have defined any parameter name with this value, so it is the first open value in this complete command, right? Like here we are providing credential, and with that we are defining like it's a credential. All right, here we are defining some commands to run on remote machine, but here we are telling it's a script block, right? But here we are not defining anything. By default, for this command, whatever value we have in a open way, it's a computer name parameter value, right? That's the meaning of position 0 of a parameter. So we will not be focusing on this part very much, because in that case we will divert from our main focus. So in case you want to see like detailed way, like how we can see the help of commands and how we can use help center, please use our previous videos. So we have a detailed lecture on these things in those videos. So now let me come to our main focus point, and that is PS remoting. Remoting commands act in a temporary way, like they create the sessions in a temporary way, like they create the session for their work, they use that session, and as soon as their work is over, they remove the session. The sessions are not permanent, but they are just temporary. And in case like we have to check that, what we can do is let me copy the same command. Suppose in case I create one variable over here, like suppose test variable, right? And I define its value as test value. Fine. Now what I need to do is I need to create this variable, and also I need to return the value of this variable in the same command. All right. So now if I run this command, you can see this command is returning the value of my newly created variable, that is test variable. All right. Now what if I need to use same command, but this time I will not be creating the variable, but I want to fetch the value of my previously created variable, right? So if I try to return the value of that variable which I created in my last command, oops, as you can see, I don't have any value. The variable is blank. So what does it mean is, this command created a session on my remote machine, it created a test variable, and in the same session I tried to print the value of this variable, and it was printing. Once my command is over, it has removed the session. Now when I am using next time the same command, what it is doing is it is creating a new session again, and it is running the commands in this new session, and whatever the information I was having in my previous session, that is not coming over here in this new command session. All right. So every time, new command, new session, new things, and everything is new. We don't have anything stored out of our previous sessions. Please keep this in mind. And one more thing, whenever we run a command on our remote machine, if the output of that command contains output in a column way, like it has multiple properties of that output, what happens is we get an extra column that contains a name of remote machine, right? So basically the purpose of that is, like suppose in case we are running command on single machine, that is fine. We can easily identify that from where this output is coming. But what if in case we have to run our command on multiple machines? So if we don't get a computer name separately, our output would be mixed up. All right. So let me run a command, or what we do is let me copy it from there just to save some time, and let me write a command over here like get hyphen service, and maybe this time let me take a single service only, that is Windows update. All right. And if I try to run this command, as you can see, I'm getting the status of this service, but apart from that, I'm also getting the name of computer, means IP of computer I'm getting over here. All right. So in case like I'm running a command on single computer and I don't want this parameter, what I can do is hide computer name. So if I run this command now, this time I don't see this extra column over here. But please keep in mind, this column helps us to differentiate the output from different machines. Alright, it is very helpful in many of the cases. Next is output serialization and deserialization. This is very important when we are working with PowerShell remoting output. And trust me, in 80% of cases, people struck with this thing only. Like they try to modify the output which is not supposed to be, or that is very difficult to modify in most of the cases. So we need to follow best practice if we want to take desired output in desired format. So serialization is the process of putting output into XML format. So this conversion is basically to make the transit of data easy. One of the benefit of XML is like we don't have to allow any extra port for this sharing of data or sharing of output. It can work simply on the same port on which our PS remoting works. Deserialization is the process of converting output from XML to normal format again. Key point to note here is that some loss of functionality is there. Like when this conversion happens, like when output is converted from XML to its normal format and presented on client machine, then the output is not in its actual form. So it is not very much writable, but read-only form more or less. So we can say it's a static version of object. Like we cannot do much modification on that output. We will see in our demo like how exactly it becomes read-only, or why I am saying that it becomes read-only. I will show you. And the best practice while working with output of a PS remoting command is that we need to perform all the operations on that output on remote machine itself. But we should not do that like once we have received the output on our client machine or our local machine, then we are performing some actions on the output. That is not the best practice. Please make a thumb rule. Whatever you want to perform on output, perform it on remote machine only. It makes our work easy and also it saves time. Let me name this demo as serialization and deserialization. All right. So now if I have to see like how it exactly work is, before discussing anything further, let me see a quick example. So if I want return a service whose display name is, again let me take the same example, that is Windows update. All right, this one. And if I run this command, I'm getting the service. But now if I want to check like what is the type of this output, or what are the methods that I can apply on this output, or what are the properties of this output. All right, so how I can check is get hyphen member command, or let me write the complete command, get hyphen member. Right, so if I run this command, you can see I am getting so many properties in this output, and also I am seeing so many methods in this output. Right, so let me limit the output to methods only, and member type is method. All right, just to shorten the output. So if I run this command, you can see still I have so many methods in this output, and if I have to count it, what I can do is measure hyphen object, and if I run this, you can see I have 15 methods in the output of this command. It means I can perform 15 different actions on this output. Like I can equal this, or I can refresh this, I can start the service, I can stop the service, I can use all these methods. In case you are not aware about what are the methods, what are properties, please refer our previous videos. Next is if I run same command on my remote machine, let me see what kind of output do we get. All right, what I can do is invoke hyphen command, or what I can do is let me copy this from my previous command and to save some time, right? So if I run this, as you can see, I am getting this output. And now if I have to check what is the type of output or how many methods and properties are there, again same thing, like gm. This time you can see like I have only two methods available on the same output of same command, right? Here as well I'm trying to just get a service, but this time I'm getting only two methods on this output, means I can perform only two actions on this output. You can easily see I have only two methods, but previously I was getting, like when I was running this command on my local machine, I was getting 11 methods with this output. But if I'm running same command on remote machine and then I'm getting the output from remote machine, then I have only two methods. It means like the output when it comes from remote machine, it becomes almost read only. We cannot perform much actions on that output. So please keep in mind, if you have to use the output in different ways, you have to put different filters, different formats, different formulas, or whatever you want to do, please perform all those actions in this block only. Thumb rule is whatever action you want to perform on remote machine, please enclose that here only. Now next is using local variables on remote machines. These local resources may be anything like some variables maybe, or some functions or scripts which have been created on my local machine, but I want to use them on remote machine. The benefit of this approach is that I can save some efforts. Like in normal case, what I have to do is, suppose I have to run a script on remote machine. In that case, I need to copy the script on remote machine first, and then I can use that script on remote machine, right? But in this case, what I can do is I can store the script on my local computer, and then I can use that script on remote machine without actually copying it on that machine permanently. So sometimes it may be compulsory for some compliance policies or some other measures as well. We can use local variables on remote machines using this keyword, right? And the command, we can see example, like in this command, we are using invoke command, and we are defining a remote computer as well. And we are defining this variable in this script block. Like using this keyword, we are trying to tell that the variable defined over here is created on our local machine, but we are trying to use it on remote machine. In the same way, we can use local functions which are created on our local session of our local machine by using keyword function, right? So by defining function before the name of function, we are telling that this function is created on our local machine, but we are trying to use it on remote machine. All right. And same is the case with script. Like we have to use parameter file path, and then we can define the path of file on our local system. The benefit with this approach is, as I have already told you, like we don't have to open the ports which are required for file sharing. Like port 445 is required for file sharing. In normal case, in case we need to transfer some file to remote machine, we have to open the port 445, right? But if we use script files which are stored on our local machine and we need to work with them on remote machine, these files or these scripts can be passed using XML format, and this data can be shared to remote machines using this XML format, and no extra port is required to be opened apart from normal port of PS remoting. Let me name this demo as using local resources on remote computer. All right. So in this demo, let me see like how we can use local variables on remote machine. All right. So before discussing this demo or this example, let me create a local variable first. So let me create a like a local and variable, and let me define its value as maybe test value. All right, this one. Okay. So now let me try to return the value of this variable, and if we try to return the value of this variable, its value is like we are getting test value. That's fine. It is working perfectly on our local machine. Now what if I have to use this variable on my remote machine? All right, so what I can do is, like suppose invoke hyphen command, and again computer name is same one, like remote computer, and credential is like same what we have been using so far, that is $cred. And now script block is the value of my variable $local variable. So now if I run this command, you can see like I'm not getting the value of variable over here in my output. Like I'm getting the value of my variable and then nothing is there in front of it. All right, so it means I'm not able to use my local variable in my remote machine. In case I have to use this, so there are so many cases like where we have to use our local variables in our remote machine. So for that, what we can do is we can use extra keyword, that is here we can append is like using and double quotes. So if I run this command now, this time you can easily see like I'm getting the value of this variable. It means I'm able to use my local variable on my remote machine easily. All right, and next is how we can use our local functions on remote computer. All right, using local functions on remote computer. All right, so before showing this demo, let me create a local sample function first. Right, so for creating a function, what we have to do is function, and then we have to define the name of this function. Let me name it like a list name. Okay, and let me use a command like host name. So this is the command that we want to use against this function name. Right, if I run this, and now if I use this function list name, and if I run this, I am getting the name of my local computer. All right, so means this function is working fine. Now if I have to run this function, so if I have to run this on my remote computer, what I have to do is invoke command, and then again computer name, my remote computer name. All right, and then my credentials. So you can easily see like how it becomes easy if we store the things in variable. Right, so we don't have to pass the values again and again, and we can easily use our variables. That's the power of using variables. If I have to use this function is, for that what I have to do is $, and then I have to define function, and then again same symbol, and then function name, like this. All right, so now if I run this command, I can see I'm getting the name of remote computer. Only by using this keyword, this extra keyword, I'm able to use my local function on my remote machine. In this way, we can use our local functions on remote machine. It is very helpful when you have to deploy something in a large environment. To perform this demo, we need to have a local script first. So I have that created beforehand just to save some time. So if you want to see the content of that local script is like test script, and if I run this command, contents of this script is only host name, means I have only one command inside this script just to make the things simple. So now if I need to use this script on my remote computer, how I can use this? For this, all the things are simple and same what we have used till now, like hyphen command, and then again computer name, that is remote computer, right, and credential. And now what we have to do is we don't have to define the script block path like we have been doing till now. What we have to do is we have to define file path. All right, and then we have to define the path of our local script. That is something like here I have, right, this one. All right, so if I run this, I can see I'm getting the name of my remote computer. So same script that is stored locally, I can use that on remote machine to get the output from remote machine, and same script I can use on my local machine just to get the output from my local machine. Now next is ad hoc sessions versus Persistent sessions. Till now, we were working with ad hoc sessions, which PowerShell creates, use them, and automatically destroy them. These sessions are not saved at all. On the other hand, we have persistent sessions, which are created specifically and which can be utilized by passing these sessions to remoting commands. The commands which are used in the case of persistent sessions are new-ps session, get-ps session, remove-ps session. Let me name this demo as persistent sessions. Alright, till now we have seen like our sessions have been ad hoc basis, right? Like they were created, work was done on remote machines, and after the work, those sessions were removed automatically, right? What if in case we have to use sessions again and again, like suppose we have done lot of work in a session, like suppose we have created so many variables, so many other things we have created, and so many other stuff we have in one session. All right, so what we can do to save our session or to use the session again and again? Simple. What we can do is we can create a new session, PS session, and we have to define like where exactly we want to create this session. Means we have to define like what is the remote computer, and then we can define is like a remote computer, and then credentials, again same thing, same one like we have been using till now. And here what we can do is if I run this command, a session would be created on my remote machine. All right, and I can use this session n number of times. And make a note, this is very important, like this session will persist as long as this console is open or I don't remove this session manually. Now our PS session is created. In case I have to list the session, what I can do is get-ps session and enter. You can see like I'm getting the list of available sessions which are created right now in this console. I'm getting like ID of that session, name, computer name on which it is created, right? And state of session is like open. I can use this, and availability is available. Also, I'm getting like what is the endpoint, right? If I use this session, where I will get connected. So if I have to use this session, what I can do is I can use either a one-to-one command, that is enter -ps session, and here I can define the, or I can refer the session name, and name of the session is like session 18, right? If I run this command, as you can see, I have entered the remote session, and I'm getting the console of remote machine. And if I run this command, I'm getting the name of my remote machine. All right, so in this way I'm using the already created session. And if I create anything over here, right, so let me create a variable over here, $variable in 1-to-1 session is equal to test value, right? So if I run this, I have created a variable in one session. Now what I do is exit -ps session. Just a second, let exit -ps session. All right, if I run this, I'm exited. All right, so let me clear the screen, and if I see host name, I'm on my local client. Now what I do is let me connect the session again, and let me see if my variable that I created previously is still available or not. So I'm here, and if I see like variable in 1-to-1 session, right, it is still there. If I enter it, I'm still getting the value. Means whatever work I will do in this particular session which is already created, that will remain as it is till I close this console or till I remove this particular session. All right, this is how we can use persistent sessions in our 1-to-1 commands. So now one more way is what we can do is like in this way it is very difficult to remember the names and all those things of about a session. Like suppose here I get like a get-ps session, and right, so if I run this command, I can see like I have 2 sessions now, right? But it is very difficult sometimes. Like suppose I have I have many sessions. Suppose I am working with 100 machines. All right, So it is very difficult in that case to remember the name of session for each machine. All right. So what we can do in that case is we can store session information in a particular variable, and then we can use that variable again and again when I am working with remote machine. All right. So here, let me do one thing. Let me create a session variable and store the information of remote session like new -ps session, and again computer name is remote host and credential is again $cred. All right. So if I run this command, so all the information of this session has been stored in my this session. So if I see the value of this session, I can easily see like it contains a session that is like ID is 20, name is session 20, and all those things it has, right? Computer name, and so everything it has. But the only thing is this time I have stored all the information in my variable. Now, in case I have to use it, what I can do is, like suppose, let me see an example of one-to-many command this time, like maybe invoke -command, and what I can do is session, and I can refer the name of this variable here. All right. So session, and what I can directly do is, so as you can see and notice as well, like when we use a stored session or when we use an already created session, we don't have to define the computer name or credential because all those things are stored in session information already. All right. So suppose I have to run a command like maybe our simple command that is host name, and if I run this, I can see like I'm getting the name of my remote computer. All right. So in this way, we can use sessions by creating them beforehand and then storing them again and again with different remoting sessions or remoting commands. So next is like suppose in case we have to remove the session, what we can do? We can simply use remove -ps session, and then we can define like session that is stored in our variable, or we can define the name of session or ID of session. So what we can do is like for now, let we give the session which is stored in our variable, that is like session, like this one. If I run this command and it has been executed, now if I see the value of this variable, you can see like information is there but state is closed. All right. So please notice this, and availability is none. It means it has just dummy things, but in actual session has been closed and not available to use. All right. So in this way we have killed our session. And now if I want to see like get -ps session, right? If I run this command, I can see I have only 2 sessions, but the session number 20 is not there. Right. So in this way we can remove the session, we can create the session, we can use the session with different remoting commands,